Hello and welcome to the AV Experience, the solo experience. I'm your host, Ryan, and we're doing another stream. We're trying to be consistent here on the streams of inconsistency. So hopefully you guys tune in, you enjoy the show. If you have any questions, make sure you drop them in chat. I will be starring them or answering them because they're a little bit easier to answer while I'm here by myself as we go through. I got the new lens in. I've not played with it yet. New lens is for customer. It's not for me. And it was modded. So it's a modded lens. I'm going to assume it's anywhere between 9 and 10,000 native. So I'm going to play with it after the stream for a little bit. And then I've got to go do an install or fix an install. Somebody wants their cameras moved. So I got to adjust a camera on a ladder. Hello from Denmark. Home Theater Denmark. Welcome. Are you an integrator or are you a hobbyist enthusiast? All is good. It is 8 a.m. here. I like getting this stuff out early. I got a lot to do today. Do Cinelife projectors have VDR now? I can never remember what Cinelife, Christie. Which ones are the Cinelifes? Oh, so the Cinelifes are like the commercial ones. I don't think it's been deployed yet. I would imagine early next year. It works on Cinelife. It was seen at Cedia on Cinelife, but I don't think it's in the commercial world yet. Like it's not in the wild yet. It's still very much with Christie at this point. MW. Sweden here. Great timing for the show. Nicholas, I like mornings. We talked about this a little bit ago, I think a couple streams ago, where when I was doing my combat flight sim, which is what the rig is back behind me, that's my sim pit. The mornings were the best because internationally that works really well for Europe and the Middle East. Better for Asia. It's night in Asia, so it's not too late. What time is it in China right now? Let's see. Hong Kong time. So it's 9 p.m. in China. So it works decently well for Asia as well. Australia is just screwed. Like they're just screwed. There's no way for me to be able to get Sydney or anyone else involved because it's midnight there. I can't do it. So when we were doing the international stuff, what we ended up doing is we would have the teams schedule times where they could fly and that I would broadcast off of recordings because it made it easier for the teams to schedule. And I didn't have to push the Asians and the Australians to fly at 2:00 in the morning because that's not fun. Derek Harrell, good morning. Good evening, everybody. Yeah. Welcome. Ryan B, hello. MW, yeah. Well, you're crazy. I don't know why you're up at midnight. Maybe you just like being up. I have no idea. I know we had several teams from Australia, but it was just, I try and be nice. Is what I try and do, MW. You just don't care. Or maybe I don't care about you. Maybe it's that way. Derek says, MW, my understanding is that it will be released on those first, but it will be later this year or early. That is correct. It has. I don't think it's been released yet. I think they're marketing it, but it hasn't been released yet. But I'm not on the commercial side, so I have no idea. We're hopeful that we'll get something Q3, Q4 for residential next year. It's coming to the M4Ks and the Griffin. There may be something outside of that, but it needs a certain video pipeline to be able to do it as of right now. And the current generation M4Ks and Griffins, not the previous generation that I'm aware of, the current generation, do not quote me on this. Don't say, oh my gosh, it's not coming. Like ask Christie, ask a dealer. I can go find out if you ask me a question direct, if there's a specific version. But as I know right now, it is current generation M4Ks and Griffins that VDR is coming to. So I'm really excited about it. I mean, looks freaking amazing. I'm stoked to be able to have something like 50 to 60,000 to 1 dynamic. Oh, it's gonna be marvelous. Home Theater Denmark, HTM Music. So I asked him if he was an enthusiast or a custom integrator, and he says HTM Music has been a passion of mine since the mid-late 80s. Hello, Sweden. Yes, perfect timing. Yeah. Afternoon for you guys. You guys are roughly, I think Sweden is 8 hours ahead of me. Is that right? Let's see. Sweden time. 7. Okay. So you're 7 hours ahead of me. I always forget it's not as far east as I think it is. But 7 hours. Glad it's working out for you. What was your first pair of speakers? What was the turning point for you that changed it from a hobby to you becoming an enthusiast? Right? I think those are two different things. You can have a hobby, but an enthusiast is something that takes that hobby a little bit more seriously, and it's almost like a second job for them. Like they live and breathe this stuff. Was there a time, a moment in time, a turning point, a something that occurred for you? Nicholas, I think, has a question. I want to upgrade the performance, but where to start? Small room with acoustic treatment, 14 by 11, 479. Huh? 14 by 11. Maybe he means 14 foot by 11 foot 4 inches by 7 foot 9. I think that's what he means. Running 544 with NAD T77 777 V3 and a Magnet Cine Ultra LCR. What subs are you running? You just text me. Oh. What subs are you running, Nicholas? And what are those? I think the magnets are supposed to be pretty good. I don't have any experience with them, but I think they're supposed to be pretty good. So I don't think the speakers you need to worry about. Will you say for the LCRs? Are you using those LCRs for the entire base layer? What is going on for the tops? If you got magnet speakers, I don't think I would worry about that. It's probably going to come down to room and subs. And if there's anything electronically that you feel like you're not getting, like, is there a shortcoming coming from the NAD? Is there a shortcoming coming from your display or a source? If that's happening, then potentially maybe upgrade part of the electronics, but I'm probably going to say subs and or room. Torsten, hello from Norway. I have a Hamrammer. I love that name. 8-2 first round in tops. Do you have any tips to frequency range I should set them for in support for setting up direct art? A Hamrammer. What is that? I like the name. Hamrammer. Hamrammer. 8-2. Let's see. I'm just looking at these speakers. So it's the Hamrammer Immersive 8. Products. Immersive speakers. Oh, those are cool. How big are these? Are big. I'd probably go pretty low and play with it and see what happens. Those are decent speakers. I mean, your SPL 118 dB continuous, 123 dB peak. They can handle up to 600 watts. Those aren't bad. They're big, which is the first indication that they're going to be interesting or decent. I would probably run a support frequency lower than you think. Try 60 and 70 and see what happens. But it's also going to depend on how loudly you play in your room. Like if you play stupid loud, you may run into problems. But I'd start at 60 and 70 and see what happens, right? Save your progress in Dirac and mess with that support frequency because every room's going to be different. Every speaker is going to be different. And you really need to play with it in order to determine what is giving you both the best objective and subjective result. So my suggestion is do something at 50, then do one at 60, then do one at 70, and then do one at 80, and look at all of those in REW on top of each other for your responses and see what you get. Just make sure you're playing the test tone or the REW test tone in a way that it's being done through art, right? You want to make sure that art is doing it and you're not playing a test tone that is being played without room EQ. That's something that a lot of people don't think about. In some of these processors and AVRs, you can play test tones without room EQ doing anything. So it's really important that you verify, I don't know the list, but it's really important that you verify that Dirac or Odyssey or Art or Anthem or Wipeout, any of those is running however you're running these test tones. That's why it's usually a really good idea to play and measure from an external source instead of using a generator that may be built into something that can eliminate the possibility for all of that to take place. So, yeah, I would be somewhere around 80 is where I would probably be, but you could get away with lower because it doesn't have to be fully capable of the maximum output. You're doing support, right? So I would start 50 or 60 and then work my way up and measure and see. It's going to give you a better indication of what's going on and then save those measurements. And it's going to give you more insight into what's going on in your room and what art is actually doing, especially once things start to compress. Back to Nicholas. So Nicholas says sides RD200 THX non-certified. So he's got 4 DIY. Those 30-watt subs? Hope not. But you don't have a very big room. What was Nicholas's original question? Wants to upgrade performance. RD200. What are RD-200 THX? What are those? Oh, they're magnets again. I think you're probably okay with the magnet speakers. I know nothing about those subs. Can you 4558T0? What are those? Subwoofer 4558. I'm assuming it's this. Powerful low pass filter. It's got to be these. ScanSpeak? Who makes that subwoofer driver? Why are these? What are these? I'm confused by the name, but I'm not a very smart person. Okay, so that 30W means nothing. Okay, I thought that was 30 watts. It's not. Power handling, RMS is 150 watts. Long term is 350. What do you feel, Nicholas, that your room is missing? What is making you have this upgrade itch? Why are you wanting to go down this? There's got to be an underlying reason that you feel this way. I've heard magnets are decent, so that's a subjective opinion with no objective fact. It's just something that I've heard. So take that for what you will. There's no measurements available anywhere. Really? Magnet frequency response. There's some on Audio Science Review for the Monitor 102s, just as an example. Their budget. People have probably measured them. Can anybody help Nicholas? I don't have any measurements on them. I've just heard that magnets are pretty decent. Ryan B, looking forward to trying Dirac Art. Do you know if the number of filters on the 8V10 will ever increase? I have no idea. I would assume not. Usually you're pretty stuck with those bigger companies. BA Audio, why do you get rid of the Kefs if you didn't disregard? I thought you said you did at one point. I did. I sold the blades. And it's not because I didn't like them. It's because I do this for a living. And my wife wanted the room in the living room back. Like they're big. They're not small speakers. They're pretty, but they're not small speakers. So it's not because I didn't like them. It's because it was just time to move on. Right. And my wife and my daughter plays in there all the time. So it was a recipe for potential disaster in the future. And they're very pretty. And if something hit them wrong, you'd scratch the paint because they are gloss. So not the most resilient. And I didn't want to impact resale. So I sold them. Nothing wrong. I'll do something else in the future. If my mom, somebody else said mom. So it was just, if my wife allows me to, she's usually pretty good about it, but we'll take some time. I enjoyed those Kefs. I sell Kefs. I mean, I sell all kinds of different stuff. So it was just doing the dealer rigmarole and time to move on. Thibble, I appreciate that. My mom's surgery went really well. She had knee reconstruction. She is a nurse and she had developed bow leg. So this was the second surgery for her right knee. She already had the left knee done and they corrected it, made it straight again. So it went really well. She's got a few more hours in the hospital, had surgery yesterday, and then she's out. So we're good. MW, while I agree with you, I have no confidence in Denon or Morantz to do that. That's what I meant. It can, but I don't have any confidence in that actually happening. Maybe they've done it in the past and I haven't realized it. Home Theater Denmark, Ryan, I'm the Danish guy who normally watches your streams in the middle of the night. Journey started in 98 when I worked at the local radio store. Oh, I remember you. You've told us this before, I think. Since then, I would say I've become an enthusiast. I could understand that. Did you, when you worked at the local radio store, were you building your own speakers? And by radio, do you mean people were building their own radios? Is that what that was? That was a bigger thing, I feel like, in Europe than it was here. Also, with Direct Art, do just the sub that supports as a reference, then add speakers? I have no idea what that means. They all support as their frequencies become relevant. All speakers and subs support all speakers and subs if they're able to do so based on their support range, is my understanding. Paul Travasino, what are the steps for locating and integrating 4 subs in a room? Measuring and taking your time, and either putting subs in the main seating position and moving a mic around the room, or doing the opposite. I like putting things on like a low furniture dolly and moving it around because it makes it super easy, and just wheeling it around. You are impacting the height a little bit, but moving things around, finding the best physical location for them. If you don't want to do that, placing them in the 4 corners and then calibrating one sub, adding another sub, then adding another sub, then adding another sub. You want to make sure that your sum of totals is increasing, and MSO will definitely help you do that. But start with the crawl. Good point, Thibault. You guys are having conversations in between. Bruce Barnes says, what time is it in KC? The notification for this was earlier than my first alarm. It is 8 a.m. or it was. It's now 8:20. So I'm just trying to get these out early. I like doing them early because then I'm done. My wife hates it because I do not like to sit around and do nothing. If I need to get something done, I'm just going to go get it done. Like, we're redoing my garage. For anybody that doesn't know, I own a couple businesses. One of the businesses I'm working on developing, it's called Garage 21 Foundation, where we teach special needs people how to work on cars and detail. So I'm working on getting that off the ground. And part of that, we're going to start probably a lot of the detailing stuff at my house for people and local car guys to bring their cars over and have special needs people detail them. But to do that, I've got to get the garage in order. So we're painting, we're doing some other stuff, and I got to get everything out of the garage in order to make that happen. So that's a big part of what I'm doing today. But I get these hairs up my butt of things I want to do, and I get really obsessive over it, and I cannot let it go. It's constantly a tickle. Never goes away. That was maybe a little too much. Never goes away. So I just have to deal with it. I have to make it happen or get it out of the way because nobody else is going to do it for me. And my wife's always, oh, just sit down, relax. You complain and stuff. And my response is, I'm just going to sit down and it's going to dwell over me and it's going to bother me. So I might as well get it done. When I'm in the moment and actually doing it, I don't care. It doesn't bother me when I'm in the moment. It's more of certain tasks I don't want to get involved in. Like the subwoofer replacement. That had to get done. It was taking up room in the garage. Nobody else is going to do that for me. I just got to do it. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. And though I didn't want to do it, it was exciting part of it. It's still a lot of work. I couldn't do it by myself. I had to involve other people and inconvenience them, which I don't like doing. I was brought up, but like, you're the burden. Don't inconvenience other people. It's all your. That was my life growing up by my father. Love my father, but he was a little scary sometimes. So I don't like inconveniencing other people, and it kind of bothers me to ask for help. And I had a problem asking for help, and it got me in trouble when I was younger. So now I've realized you got to ask for help, but I still don't like doing it because I don't like inconveniencing other people. But that's a long way to say that when I get up, I'm often doing stuff. I don't get up and sit around and do nothing. That bothers me. It's okay if you do it. I just can't do it. I'm not going to think ill of you if you do it. The subs are 12s. Nicholas, you got to tell me what you don't like about the room. What don't you like about your room? Why do you feel like you need to upgrade? Home theater, Denmark. This is back to how we got into a passion for home theater. I was a delivery guy who installed stuff for people, mostly TV, VCR, and small home theater systems. Nothing that big, but led the way for sure. I am the M&K guy. Okay, that makes more sense. You said radio store, so I didn't know what that meant. When I hear radio store, I think of like little FM AM radio, not I'm installing TVs and VCRs. So you're talking like an electronics kind of thing is how I would refer to that. Maybe. I guess Radio Shack played into that, and it does have the name radio in it. So I'm probably the one that's wrong. But I totally understand what you mean now. Ryan, have you ever had a room set up for demoing different speaker systems similar to how you are doing with the Tritonov Storm, but for speakers? If so, any recommendations? We did this at Cedia, and I have done it here in my basement. It's a pain in the butt because there's a lot of variables that have to come into play and that you have to think about in order to make sure that it's fair. One, speakers really need to be in the same position because if they're not, you're introducing different room modes. And those can vary based on the position of the speaker and the position of the reference seating position. So when you're doing something at like Best Buy and they've got all the speakers or Nebraska Furniture Mart or any big box store and they've got all the speakers lined up, one of the things you're listening to is the room, right? You're listening to how those speakers interact with the room. And every one of those speakers, because they're not all in the same position and all the employees doing is switching between different speakers, the room is going to interact with those speakers in different ways. Yes, the speaker itself with dispersion and its sound power, and it's going to interact with the room on its own, but just based on position, you're changing how that interaction is taking place. So really to do it objectively, and we did this at M-Wave in 23, you need to have every speaker in the same position. So we did it on a massive Lazy Susan, where we were able to spin bookshelves and put them in the exact same position every time. And you have to level match them. And in my opinion, you also need to put a cut on them at the low end to remove the speaker that can go the lowest. Because almost unanimously, the speaker that can go the lowest is the one that people are going to pick. It's going to sound fuller. And if you're going to play things with a subwoofer anyway, that's not really a fair comparison. So you could, if your processor could do it, have every speaker play with the same sub that's in the same position. That would be a way to do it. But how we did it at M-Wave is we just put a curtain on the low end so that a speaker could only play down to like 80 hertz. And it made it a lot more even because, again, the speaker that plays the lowest is virtually unanimously going to be picked. That's why subs are important. So you got to remove that variable. So the room, SPL, different frequencies, putting the curtain in there, level matching everything's really important. Seating positions for the listeners is also very important. So if you're doing anything outside of the main list of just one person, you have to make sure that people rotate, because that speaker is going to sound different at different points in the room. And every speaker will also sound different in different points because of how the sound emanates and propagates from that particular speaker, right? Dispersion characteristics, sound power, how the reflections interact, all that kind of stuff. That means that the speaker is going to sound different at different seating positions. So you've got to take that into account. A lot of variables can be done. We're going to do it again at M-Wave in 26. I've got the Lazy Susan. I've got all of that. I'll probably ask Bob if he wants to be in charge of that room, or maybe Jonathan, to see if they want to run that. And then we'll do probably amplifiers with speaker wire and stuff, and see if people can tell the difference there, all that. But that's to say, it's really important to do that, but it's more difficult to do it properly than people think. And you want to do it blind, because subjective bias will come in. Visual stimuli will outweigh, even subconsciously, your, what's the word? I don't know what the word is, but if you know what it is, you have the potential to add your own level of bias based on your past experiences with that thing. Right? So, got to be blind. Ryan asks Ryan a question. I have a Denon 5500H. When connecting two subs, does it matter if I use the independent sub 1 and sub 2 on the 51H, or if I use sub 1 with a Y cable? Depends on how you're trying to deploy this. So sub 1 and sub 2, if you use both, that means they both can be calibrated independently. If you use one and use a Y cable, Odyssey is going to calibrate them both together. And based on the position, that may not be ideal. So if you use a Y splitter, you're going to want to use the phase dial and the gain dials on the back of the subs to integrate them before you present them to Odyssey. You want to make sure they're in phase, and you want to make sure they're SPL matched before you integrate to Odyssey, because if you don't, Odyssey is going to base its calibrations on how the system is in the room. And if they're out of phase, that's going to be bad. So phase is effectively a time dial that changes when the driver moves into certain positions. So we want to adjust that so that it's in time with the other sub if you're using the Y cable. If not, and you just have them both independent, Odyssey should be able to do that. But if you're stacking like two subs on top of each other, it shouldn't be a problem. You should just be able to have them set the same and use the Y splitter. And then Odyssey will just treat it as a big subwoofer. Good question, though. Derek says, thanks. That makes sense. I was trying to figure out a potential ability to also demo them in home theater space, knowing that the room is critical, but trying to keep the speakers near the same location. Yeah, little details impact this a lot more than you think. Even stacking speakers can become a problem because of how dispersion works on the drivers. If you have a speaker that's really narrow, or even not, I mean, you can impact pretty significantly how that speaker sounds just by moving it up and down. Electrostatics are a great example of that. They have line sources. They have terrible vertical dispersion. So if you start moving things up and down, and somehow you get a dispersion characteristic above a reference seating position where the ear level is, you're going to have a bad time. That's kind of hard to do, but it's more easy to understand example of what I mean. Any type of variation is an added variable that could impact your test. So remove as many variables as possible. So now, what do you have in your living room? Only flowers, a tiny Sonos speaker, Kef Blades, love equals win. It's beautiful. I have a Sonos soundbar with a Sonos sub. Does what I need to do. People poo-poo on soundbars all the time, and I don't get it. Soundbars are great for certain use cases. Should they be used in a home theater, like a real home theater? No. Are they great for living rooms? Absolutely. Because my wife, as easygoing as she is and allowing me to do this stuff, she doesn't want all the time enormous speakers in there. I've had F200s, I've had F100s, I've had XT60s, Kef Blades, smaller Kef. I don't remember what they were. I think the R7s or R5s. I had Perlisten S7Ts. I've had multiple subwoofers in there. So she's been very tolerant, and the Kef blades. But at the end of the day, I'm not watching in there for like my critical listening and watching. I go to the theater. So it's just there to, if we want to watch some sports or what have you, it doesn't matter. There's a 77-inch OLED. Soundbar is a lot better than what the TV has. There's a wireless sub. It does great for what it is. And she's gotten to the point now, if the soundbar doesn't work, she goes, that doesn't sound good. What's wrong? So power to her for that. But sometimes it's best just to keep it simple. And in the living room, keep it simple. Stephen Walters, any JVC 800, 900 owners out there with upgrade to the new V2 firmware? I have not heard anybody upgrading to that yet. That doesn't mean it's bad. Wonder what they fixed or changed or did. Has anybody in chat done anything? Paul Travasino, have you heard of putting acoustic treatments around or on the wall speaker to reduce SBIR? It depends on what you're trying to do. Certain speakers rely on SBIR in order to function correctly. Take Ascendo as a perfect example. In walls, really, all in walls do, because they're right next to that reflective surface. So they use SBIR as a reinforcement for certain frequencies, especially low ends. So you've got to look at not a characteristic of what the speaker necessarily does, but how can you support or what's going on in your room and then treating that accordingly. Because what you may need may differ very significantly, potentially, from a person with the same speaker because of the room. So this is why I really emphasize a lot of times getting speakers that complement the room, that work well in the room instead of the other way around. The speakers should be used as a tool in order to get the overall best experience based on room limitations, placement limitations, SP, all that stuff. And then design around trying to fix compromises that speaker may introduce that you can't fix. So that's how I would look at this. Measure, look at where your issues are, and then put different pieces of absorbent material like Pink Fluffy. Well, a lot of times Pink Fluffy is not going to be thick enough to work at those thicknesses that you'd want on a wall. Corning, that kind of stuff. Put that there and see, am I getting a positive impact? And look at and move the speaker forward and away from the wall to lessen and increase its SBIR and see where you get. Measure while you're doing this. Do an RTA, which I think REW now supports, and look at how things are changing as you do these, make these changes in your room, and try and get to where you both objectively and subjectively prefer. It's a pain in the ass, but that's the kind of stuff that needs to be done if you're not designing and taking all of this stuff into account at the very beginning. Like my Ascendos, they need SBIR. It's how they're designed. They're meant to be on wall, and they're designed in a way, crossovers are designed, all of that, for the expectation that they're going to be near or on a wall. So I put them in accordingly. And EQ can deal with this a little bit, right? So my speakers sit a little bit off the wall, so I've lessened the SBIR effect to them to some extent. But you want them close to a boundary because that's how they're designed. So try and use things in a use case if they were properly implemented in the way they were designed. That was really long of me saying dumb, or not dumb, but use it how it's supposed to be used. Derek, bias, are you saying pretty speakers aren't always the best? How dare? No, they're always the best. Always. Pretty speakers, always the best. No. I think the Black Swans are one of, if not the best speaker in the world, and they are hideous. Well, the normal versions. There was a carbon fiber version, not carbon fiber. Yeah, forged carbon fiber with gold leaf and stuff at Cedia. They were really pretty. The normal Black Swans, not pretty. Not pretty at all, but they're really, really good. So, no. But to some extent, aesthetics does play into how you experience something. If you have something, take a clean car, right? Your experience with a clean car is better than when it's dirty, even if the performance is the same. Your experience with it is better. So how you may look at that future, you may look at that. You may draw some connotations of, oh, I enjoyed that experience. And then you may draw some potentially misleading connections there that it had better response or something that may have not have been present because it was better aesthetically looking than one that wasn't. Not saying that actually happens, just possibility. It is a variable. That's why blind testing is really important. Ryan, currently have an Epson 5050. Would it be worth an upgrade to the Epson LS12000? Is that big of a difference between the two? I can never remember when the new software was introduced. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a pretty substantial upgrade, software alone, for HDR, for image handling. Those projectors, and maybe I'm misconstruing the 5050 with the 5040. Those projectors were heinous for HDR. You had to put them in SDR. They did not like HDR content. And I'm talking about the 5040 because I don't remember what changed on the 5050. So chat, if you know, you can correct me. But if it's like the 5040, substantial upgrade. You don't have to deal with bulbs anymore. The lasers last a ridiculously long time, way longer than people think they do. Motion is as good, if not improved. And I want to say the LS12000 is quieter than the 5050. It is insanely quiet. All of the new Epsons are insanely quiet, all up to the QL7000, just insanely quiet. So to me, if that has the same software as the 5040, total worthwhile upgrade. And I do have a couple in stock. So if you want to send me a message and you're interested to it, we can talk about what the outdoor pricing is to you. Just send me a message. Here's the caption. You can shoot me a message. And we'll get you taken care of. Or you can, if you have my phone number, you can also send me a message there. But oh, nope, wrong one. There we go. If it's the same software, big upgrade. If it's not, it's still an upgrade, but not as substantial because the software is a big component of that. I love the 5050. I think it's a budget king because you can get them for $1,000. But, and that means you could resell it for about that, I would assume, on AVS. I just think the LS12000 is a great all-around projector. Apple has been, Viditas. I'm going to assume I said that right. I'm going to assume I said that wrong. First time catching you live, enjoying your show very much. Best wishes from Lithuania. Thank you very much. I have a friend whose family was from Lithuania. I am not familiar with that area of the world, but he was and would vacation there every summer. And he would bring us back absinthe. Whether or not that was legal, I don't know. But he would bring it back and we would all partake. Oh, Jonathan's here. The man, the myth. He's not a myth. The man, the legend. 5040 was terrible for HDR. 5050 is similar to the LS12000 for HDR. QB is somewhere Epson introduced dynamic. Okay, so Jonathan listens to what I said and just goes, no, that is incorrect, Ryan. You are full of crap. I told you I didn't know. So it would come down to, Ryan, do you want a laser? And I think the LS12000 may be a little brighter, but the main change there is going to be bulb to laser light engine. Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong. That's my assumption of what the main difference is going to be there. If you want to pull a bit more funds out and go QB1000, a little bit better tone mapping, it's even quieter. Will you notice? Potentially not. Technically, the QB1000 is better in every way, but it comes down to if you left a room and came back and I had both and I was cycling between them, would you be able to tell which one was on? Probably not. We've done that test. So I like the QB1000. I think it's better future-proof, especially from the software, but you've got to weigh, is that minute increase in performance and future-proofing worth the increase in cost? Subjective opinion. You'll have to figure that one out. But Jonathan, I do appreciate the correction. And Jonathan, I really appreciate you and your daughter's work in helping me correct the horrificness of punctuation and styling that was going on the M-Wave website, midwestav.experience.net yesterday. It was really bad. And you should look at a couple of the pages. I'm adjusting the headers. They look better. So there's that. I'm going through and adding more pictures and stuff. If anybody wants to get on there, midwestavexperience.net. I don't own the .com domain, so we're going to .net. I'm going to try and get the .com domain so it's easier, but it's midwestavexperience.net if you want to go there. It is up, and you can buy tickets if you wish. That it should work. At least I hope it works. It was working for me. But Jonathan, I do appreciate you taking your time and doing that. You can thank your daughter for that time as well. And if Megan looked through that, I'm very thankful that you took the time to go through that and help me out, because I am not a grammatical wizard. Ryan has another question. If I set my 2 subs up using independent sub 1 and sub 2 connections and run Odyssey 32XT, then run Rue and see nulls and peaks, can I then use the 4500X distance in subphase to fix? Yes. Odyssey's usually pretty good about timing. Phase can be a little weird because phase can change at different frequencies, but you can. I would try, instead of doing that first, try moving your microphone, your REW microphone, and listening and measuring and seeing what happens if I move my measurement microphone a foot forward. What happens if I move it a foot back? Because then everything's still time aligned. It hasn't changed. But you can see if there's a room mode that exists at your listening position. I guess it technically has changed because you've lengthened the distance and shortened the distance for the front, but it shouldn't be impactful enough to cause a problem for that. You could adjust timing accordingly, but I would move forward and back to see if you are indeed sitting in a mode. Gerardondo, West Coast time is rough. Well, you can watch it in the VOD. I just like doing these and knocking them out. I enjoy interacting with you guys. And as I said earlier, I don't like getting on and then having something I'm doing later in the day, because then it's like I have to prepare for it. I kind of fly by the seat of my pants a lot of times. I knock a top task out and then I go on and like, what else needs to be knocked out? And then what else? And then what else? Like yesterday, what did I have yesterday? I had to take my mom to the hospital because she was having surgery. It was just nothing bad. She was having knee reconstruction. She's doing great. Then I had to pick up my daughter from school. I had to go by the city hall to get some stuff for a new business that I'm doing with cars. So I had to get some paperwork for dealer license stuff, get some tax certificates. Now I've got to get a bond, and I've got to get some insurance, and I got to do a floor plan for the city, and just stuff. There's always stuff. And my wife's always, why do you do all this stuff? And I have to tell her, if I didn't do this stuff, I would be fat, because my brain wants to do stuff, even if that stuff is eat stuff. So I got to do stuff to not eat stuff. That was a terrible way to say that, but that's how it came out. Yeah, I've realized that if I am not doing something, my mouth, well, it wants to do something. It's going to eat, and I'm going to get fat because I'm not active enough for that to be a thing. Jonathan's VIP experience is already sold out. I misspelled Jonathan's name yesterday, and he gives me so much crap for not knowing his name, and I misspelled it. I did go correct it, but I misspelled it because I'm a terrible friend. And I'm a terrible person, and I cannot remember Von England for my life, how to spell it. Nope, but nobody can remember how to spell my last name either. So there's that. It's karma, I guess. Anybody have any other questions? Do I have anything to talk about? I was going to talk about some stuff with Infra because Kevin, one of the Kansas City locals, sent me a video about how infrasonics could be damaging. Not in the home theater sense. It was just infrasonics in the real world could be damaging. And it got me thinking not about the damage that infrasonics cause, but that we're surrounded by more infrasonic frequencies than we think at very low levels. And we experience them a lot of times, I think, through pressure and feeling instead of auditorily. and even auditorially through pressure, even though that's what sound is technically. So I think it got me thinking, well, harmonics, are we missing something with infrasonic? If your sub can't get down low enough, harmonics go up from a frequency, from the fundamental, but don't they go down? And so I called Adam Peltz because I wanted to know before I said this. And he goes, no, they do technically go down, but they're at a SPL or a power that is insignificant and you won't notice. So really the ones that we notice are increasing from the fundamental. So what I thought about, oh, if your sub can't play down to infrasonics, you're not getting those fundamentals that are going down lower, was full of crap. It didn't, that thought process didn't make sense. So I want to call him and verify. And I verified that I was wrong. But it's important. It is important to verify and know if you're going to be wrong, because if you're wrong and I got up here and said that to everybody, that would be bad. So the reason I thought this was in one of my favorite demo clips, Imagine Dragons Radioactive. They make it seem like when they're hitting the bass drum, there's this, because I have a measurement mic, a calibrated measurement mic that's actually SPL calibrated in the room that I can view on smart. We can see all the frequencies for RTA and not just the RTA. There's another word for the graph that comes up, but I can see everything in the power that's going on in the room. And in this particular track, there's a ton of energy that comes down into single digits whenever the bass drums hit. But if you pay really good attention, and Adam noted this too, if you pay really good attention, it doesn't actually coincide when the bass drums hit. So they're, after the fact, adding all of this this audio and energy in post. And I like it. But that's what made me feel that, oh, we're not playing the harmonics. And if you don't have an infrasonic, you're not getting that. And if you don't have an infrasonic, you're absolutely not getting that, because it is there, but it's not, that infrasonic energy was not what I thought it was. I thought it was, oh, it's harmonic. It's not. It was, that's something that they added in post. So he corrected me and I graciously accepted the correction. So I was going to talk about that, and now we're not, because I was wrong. But it did send me down the path of that video of making me think about how we are surrounded by more infrasonic energy than we may think. And that may be why, hypothesis, we like infrasonic. I don't know. I don't think a lot of the audio tracks and stuff that we play back have a lot of infrasonic sound, but that's where my brain went. That's what I was thinking about this morning and yesterday. So take that for what you will. Hi-Fi Clubbin', 4 subs in Direct Art. Put them into own groups or keep them all 4 in one group. I would just keep them in one group. I wouldn't put them in 4 groups. I'd keep them in one. We've done this stuff with like independent subs. Direct's going to calibrate them. But for, I think you're talking about art support and live bass control, I would just put them in a subgroup. We've done the bass routing in Marantz and Den, and Jonathan's done a bunch of testing. I've done testing with Storm. It's cool in concept. And it would be cool if you had an enormous room or you were outside and you weren't dealing with room modes. But a lot of times where independent subs are, or if you're using speakers that have large drivers, like 12s or 15s or 18s attached to them, where that speaker's placed is probably not the best location for a subwoofer. So doing that, you're just going to get subpar results. Now, art may make it work because you can support it. I didn't think about that. But can you do those at the same time? I don't think you can. I don't think Storm allows you to do that. And I don't think Denon or Marantz allow you to do that. Art with bass routing. I don't think that's possible. And if that's not possible, I just wouldn't do it. I would put them all together. You're not going to be able to localize them. We think we can, and at a high enough frequency you can, but in home theater, there's so much going on. I can't. In my room, I can't localize it. It's hard enough to even figure out where a test tone's coming out of subs if the test tone's low enough from one sub, not all of them. I can't even figure out if a test tone's below like 40 hertz, which sub it is. I have to go up and listen to like right where it is. I can get a vicinity of like a third of the room, like it's somewhere over here, but then I've got to go up a lot of times and touch the sub to try and figure out which one it is. So people get so caught up in all of this of localization of bass. And I used to be there when I was doing this theater, when we were building the Mad VR Experience Center, and I was trying to figure out speakers and placement, and I was trying to evaluate what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to do that. I thought I wanted to put huge speakers for all of my surrounds. And then I got told, no, that's a bad idea. And the thing that resonated with me was the places that you're going to put speakers are not really the best places to put subs. And sure, if you put enough of them and they're all playing at the same time, sure. But if they're emanating by themselves, no. Unless you have a really big room because of room modes. And even then, you may be sitting in a null. You'd have to measure that and calculate it and make sure that the placement is good enough for all of that. I probably just spouted a bunch of BS, but that was my thought process through all of that. Again, chat, I want everybody to understand I am not the end all be all when it comes to this stuff. I encourage everyone, if you hear something that may resonate with you through here, through when Jonathan and I do our streams, through any stream, any VOD, anything on YouTube, any podcast, something on ABS, research it. Let this be the stepping off point to where you go and do your own research and validate or disprove. Right? Don't take this as gospel. This should be the epicenter that starts you, and you're the wave that moves out and gains more and bigger and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That's what I want this to be. So we talk about stuff, but I want you to go verify. And if you disprove it, come tell us, because I want to know. I want to know, and I am always growing. I am always learning. And I think in order to do that, you're going to be wrong sometimes. So regardless of what you hear, what you see, what you experience on this channel, make sure you go verify it from multiple sources and good sources. Don't take it as gospel. I think that's really important. Derek Harrell, are you familiar with the difference between the Martin Logan Motion and Motion XT architectural lines? Yes. The Motion and Motion XT use different drivers, particularly the tweeter. The tweeter on the XT is it's larger and it has different dispersion. The Motion lines tweeter is symmetrical, vertical and horizontal in how it outputs sound. The XT has greater surface area, can handle higher power, and it has a restrictive dispersion in the vertical and is about the same horizontal. So sound quality typically is going to be better from the XT, but the Motion line is very good. They're both very good. There's just some differences there, mainly in the tweeter. And there is driver differences there, construction differences and things as you go up. But Derek, if you have any interest in Martin Logan, I am a Martin Logan masterpiece dealer. Even if you don't buy from me, I'm happy to answer all of your questions. Here is the contact info right there. Feel free to reach out. And that goes for everybody. If you have a question, do not feel like you have to buy something. I entered this industry because I wanted to make it better, not because I wanted to sell a bunch of stuff. So if you got a question, don't hesitate to reach out. I am happy to sell you things, but I became a dealer to help the industry, not to fill my pocket. Derek, another question for the art discussion. Does it matter if the subs are in different areas for how art can best use them for sport? Ideally, best sublocation for getting sound waves, flat frequency response to the reference seating position. So yes, ideally, it does matter. The more subs you're going to put in, the better. Infinite number. The more you have, typically the better. There are times if you don't align, and there's sometimes that even if you do that, certain positions, like let's say you had two and you had to put two subs in a certain position, regardless of what you do for alignment, if that spot is bad for that second sub, you may just make everything worse. If you time align everything, you probably will make things as good, if not better, and you'll gain energy, but you may make it worse. So placement is a big deal. Tybalt, I asked an architectural friend if I would have a problem if I added 1 or 2 the 64. No problem for the house to collapse. Certain frequency would have to be repeated for hours. Yes. The main issue that I have with it, and it's not just the 64, it's subs in general, is a lot of US construction is timber and nails. And because of that, repeated low end frequency, and if you think about how long we use these rooms, it will start to back out and loosen things. I don't think it'll ever fail, but it will loosen to where you'll start hearing rattles. I think really high frequencies, we have seen failures. Not of rooms collapsing, but we've seen drywall start to come down. We've seen grout underneath tile disintegrate. We've seen damage occur. We've seen lights come out. We've seen things fall off walls. It can absolutely happen. Will your house fall down? Probably not. Can you damage things? Yes. If you play loud enough and at certain frequencies. Absolutely, you can. And I don't know what happens to concrete. That's another thing. Like, are we with these really low are we doing anything? Probably not. But I don't know. And for me, reference in my room is in the Mad VR Experience Center is when I say reference, we're at like 125 to 130, depending on content. Overall SPL measured at the seating position. That's a lot of energy. And the subs are putting out they'll start to compress 115 dB at 5 hertz. So they're going to compress at that frequency moving up. So I'm not getting as much down low. I don't think I'd want more than that down at that high. But yeah, my wife always gets mad at me. She thinks I'm going to damage the house, but I could damage the kitchen. Absolutely. Like I could make cabinets fall off the wall potentially. I could damage glass. I could do that. I don't think house is going to fall down. You guys are going to read the newspaper. Man dies and house collapses. 64-inch subwoofer disintegrates framing. That's what's going to come up on the news next week. Ryan, looking to get a Kaleidoscape Strato E. Can you get one at a good price? Send me a message. info@ascendav.net or ryan@ascendav.net. And we'll get you taken care of. I don't talk pricing about anything on here. But you can call me or text me or email me. Any of those 3 things are perfectly acceptable. I don't bite. We've reached the end. We've been on for about an hour. Does anybody have any more questions before I wrap this up? We're going to do this more consistently. I'm going to, what's my schedule for next week? Can I book for Monday? Yes. So we're going to book for Monday and probably Wednesday. I don't know that I want to do it every day, but we'll do Monday and Wednesday. And then I'm going to set up a point on my website. I used to do this on the ascendav.net where I've got things available and the sales that are going on. So if anybody knows of any sales, even if they're not just from the vendor, like if Best Buy is running a sale, if Crutchfield's running a sale, let's post it and let's get it on the site so that people can see it, right? I think I want you guys to make your dollar go further. Even if it's not buying from me, I want people to have a good experience in home theater. And part of that is making sure your spend can get as much as possible. Buying used. If you guys see great used deals, we can post them up there. I think all of that's great. So community effort. If you see something, email it to me and we'll try and make that work. Torsten, I'm having a lot of trouble aligning transducers of mini DSP to gain the negative delay. What is typical value of milliseconds? Also, any tips to integrate it when using ART or Marantz? Do not present a transducer to ART. You need to put it on a separate output. Ideally with the mini DSP, ART will butcher it. Don't do that. There's a video on Jonathan's channel. It's just Jonathan Von England, if I remember correctly. Jonathan, if you're still here, maybe you can give him some guidance on where that video is. But Jonathan and Sheldon did a video on how to integrate these things. It's a little more difficult than you may think. It takes a little bit longer to do, and you need a pretty significant negative delay in order to make it happen. So you do have a mini DSP. I just realized you do have a mini DSP. So you are going to want to keep it separate from art. Don't let art know there's one of those. So I would run the calibration art without it knowing there's a mini DSP and then bring it in after. That's how I would do that. But check out Jonathan's video, and that should be very helpful for that. Drew O'Donnell, that news article of you dying from a house collapse will definitely publish the pic of the you laying on the 264s. Yeah, that's how I want to be buried, except in it. That's going to be my coffin, one of the 64s. Does art not alter the signal? You can, if you're paying really close attention and listen and close enough to a speaker, you can hear the things that the speaker is doing, but no. Not that I've been able to tell. I can switch back and forth and I can't tell. SVS is on sale. Brian, email me that sale and we'll get it posted. I need to do that. Have I ever run Dirac on Bluesound Node? No, but I think that's super cool that they did that. So if anybody's looking for a streamer, Bluesound has implemented Dirac. It is an extra cost onto their Bluesound products, the Node, the Power Node, in different levels of such. So we do sell those at Ascend, but I mean, if you have one, it's certain models have access to it. That may be something you want to look into. Jonathan, if you're still here, we're streaming tomorrow, 7 p.m. I'm going to text you. I've got the stream scheduled already. But everybody, thanks for joining me. We're going to try and keep these short to about an hour. I appreciate it. I love the conversation, love the questions. I love just being able to interact with the community. Again, do not trust or take anything here as gospel. It is very important, though I have been doing this and I do this professionally. It is very important to go trust or check and verify. Everyone in this industry can say things that are not accurate. And I will fully admit that there are things that I have thought were accurate and I 100% believed, and then I go back and get verified. Like, perfect example was the infrasonic thing that I asked Adam Peltz about, like harmonics getting low. And he said, no, that doesn't happen. So it's important. Check, verify, question. Do that, and you'll have a better end result. Do not be afraid to learn. Don't take the easy road. You'll have a better result, better end as a result. That was terrible for saying that. But anyway. I hope I didn't just block you. I'm sorry if I put you on timeout. I'm sorry. Torsten, also loving these daytime streams. This is the last comment we'll do for us in Europe. Keep up the great work. I appreciate that. It is great to be able to interact with more of the community. I see a lot of guys from Europe here. I like the mornings. It's a great way to start off the day. But guys, it's been about an hour and 2 minutes and 53 seconds. I enjoy all of this. We will be doing a stream. I think I got to record it tomorrow with AVS. We have Eric and I are doing something with Kaleidoscape, so we'll see where that goes. But hopefully we'll see you tomorrow night stream with Jonathan. Be good to have him back. And until then, stay safe out there. Enjoy the home theater journey.